Welcome to the continuation of Week's 1 lecture on crisis management. Please refer to the PowerPoint slides as we go along with the lecture. We shall begin with slide number 5. Slide 5, Opening Scenario, the first 60 minutes. Let us now examine an opening scenario. Imagine that you are part of the leadership team of a university. At 9 o'clock in the morning, employees report that the university's computer network is not functioning. Students cannot access the learning management system. Faculty members cannot open electronic records. The admissions office cannot access application files. At approximately the same time, the facilities department reports a power interruption in one campus building. Within 15 minutes, social media posts begin claiming that the university has experienced a major data breach. One post alleges that student financial information has been stolen. A local news reporter contacts the university and asks for confirmation. What should happen during the first 60 minutes? The first priority is life safety. Leaders must determine whether anyone is in immediate danger. Is the power interruption affecting fire alarms, elevators, medical equipment, security systems, or emergency lighting? Does the building need to be evacuated? The second priority is verification. The organization must separate confirmed facts from rumors. Is there evidence of a cyber attack, or is the network outage caused by the power disruption? Has confidential information actually been accessed? Which systems are affected? The third priority is activation. The appropriate crisis team should be assembled. Depending on the organization, this may include executive leadership, campus security, information technology, facilities, communications, legal counsel, student services, human resources, and risk management. The fourth priority is assigning responsibilities. The IT team may investigate the network and isolate affected systems. Facilities personnel may inspect the building and power systems. Security may manage physical access. Communications staff may prepare internal and external messages. Legal counsel may evaluate reporting requirements. The fifth priority is communication. The organization should provide an initial message to employees and students. The message should explain what is known, what services are affected, what actions people should take, and when the next update will be provided. For example, the university is currently experiencing a network interruption affecting several online services. Our technology and facilities teams are investigating. At this time, we have not confirmed reports of unauthorized access to student information. Please avoid sharing unverified information. Another update will be issued at 10 a.m. The sixth priority is documentation. Decisions, actions, timelines, and assumptions should be recorded. Documentation is important for operational coordination, legal review, insurance claims, regulatory compliance, and post-crisis learning. Now consider the challenges. What happens if the chief information officer says the system should be restored soon, but the security team believes a cyber attack may be occurring? What happens if the media reports a breach before the university has confirmed one? What happens if senior leaders disagree about whether to close the campus? These are leadership questions, not merely technical questions. The first 60 minutes are important because they establish the pace, priorities, and credibility of the response. Delayed or confused actions may allow a manageable incident to become a major crisis. Slide 6. The 3 crises. Questions. One useful framework from the data miner material is based on 3 questions. What do I know? What do I need to know? What do I think? Let us examine each question. The first question is, what do I know? This question requires leaders to identify verified facts. In our university scenario, confirmed facts might include the following. The network is unavailable. One building has experienced a power interruption, and several university systems are inaccessible. A social media claim about stolen financial records is not yet a confirmed fact. This distinction is essential because crisis decisions should not be based entirely on rumor. The second question is, what do I need to know? This question identifies information gaps. The university may need to know whether the power failure and network outage are connected, whether confidential data has been accessed, whether backup systems are functioning, whether classes can continue, and whether law enforcement or regulators must be notified. Leaders should assign specific individuals to obtain this information. The third question is, what do I think? This question requires informed judgment. Based on the available facts, what is the most likely explanation? What could happen next? What is the worst reasonable outcome? What actions should be taken before complete information is available? This question does not encourage careless guessing. It encourages disciplined analysis. In a crisis, leaders cannot always wait for absolute certainty. Waiting may create greater harm. For example, if there is a reasonable possibility that a computer network has been compromised, the organization may need to temporarily disconnect systems to prevent further access. This action may interrupt operations, but it may also prevent a much larger breach. The three-question framework helps leaders avoid two common mistakes. The first mistake is acting too quickly based on unverified information. The second mistake is refusing to act until every fact is known. Effective crisis leadership requires a balance between speed and accuracy. Leaders should clearly distinguish facts, information gaps, and assumptions. They should also update their decisions when new evidence becomes available. Slide 7. Organizational resilience and continuity. Organizational resilience is the ability to absorb disruption, adapt to changing conditions, and continue functioning. Business continuity is the ability to maintain or restore essential operations during and after a disruption. These concepts are closely related, but they are not identical. Continuity often focuses on specific operational questions: which functions must continue, what resources are required, what backup systems are available, how quickly must services be restored. Resilience is broader. It includes the organization's culture, leadership, relationships, financial capacity, technology, employee adaptability, and ability to learn. Consider a university again. Its essential functions may include protecting students, providing instruction, maintaining academic records, processing payroll, communicating with employees, complying with government regulations, and supporting international students. If the main campus becomes unavailable, can classes continue online or at another location? If the online system is unavailable, are student records backed up? If the primary communication platform fails, does the university have alternative methods for contacting employees and students? If a senior leader is unavailable, who has the authority to make decisions? If a vendor fails, does the institution have another provider? These are continuity questions. Resilience also depends on relationships. Organizations often rely on emergency services, government agencies, suppliers, insurance providers, technology companies, neighboring institutions, and community partners. A resilient organization understands these dependencies before a crisis occurs. Resilience also requires leadership redundancy. An organization should not depend entirely on one individual. Authority and knowledge should be distributed so that operations can continue if a key leader becomes unavailable. Another important element is employee training. People should know what is expected of them during emergencies. They should know evacuation routes, communication procedures, reporting systems, and the location of emergency resources. Organizational resilience is therefore not created during the crisis. It is built through long-term planning, investment, training, relationships, and leadership commitment. Slide 8, internal and external risk. Landscape organizations face both internal and external risks. Internal risks originate within the organization. Examples include weak policies, poor training, inadequate staffing, outdated technology, financial misconduct, workplace conflict, equipment failure, or ineffective communication. External risks come from outside the organization. Examples include natural disasters, cyber criminals, political instability, economic downturns, public health emergencies, civil unrest, regulatory changes, transportation disruptions, and supplier failures. However, the distinction between internal and external risks is not always clear. An external threat may expose an internal weakness. For example, a cybercriminal is an external threat. However, the attack may succeed because the organization failed to update its software or train employees to recognize phishing emails. A severe storm is an external threat. However, the impact may become worse because the organization has no backup power, no remote work plan, or no alternative supplier. Crisis leaders must therefore understand the broader risk landscape. They should not focus only on what is happening inside their organization. They must also monitor events in the surrounding community, industry, government, economy, and digital environment. Third party risk is especially important. Organizations depend on outside vendors for technology, transportation, food, utilities, payroll, communications, security, and other services. A crisis affecting one vendor can create cascading effects. For example, a university may not experience a direct cyber attack. However, if its payroll provider is attacked, employees may not receive their salaries. A hospital may remain physically undamaged during a hurricane. However, if a pharmaceutical supplier cannot deliver medication, patient care may still be affected. Situational awareness helps leaders understand these connections. Situational awareness means having a current and accurate understanding of what is happening, what may happen next, and how the situation may affect the organization. It requires information from multiple sources, including employees, public agencies, news outlets, technology systems, security personnel, and trusted partners. However, more information does not always produce better decisions. During a crisis, leaders may receive too much information, including contradictory or unreliable reports. The challenge is to identify which information is credible, relevant, and actionable. Slide 9. Physical and cyber crisis leadership. Modern crises increasingly cross the boundaries between physical and cyber environments. In the past, organizations often treated physical security and cybersecurity as separate areas. Physical security focused on buildings, people, property, access control, fire, violence, and natural hazards. Cybersecurity focused on networks, information systems, data, software, and digital communication. Today, these areas are deeply connected. A cyber attack may create physical consequences. For example, an attacker may disable building access systems, security cameras, communication systems, transportation networks, medical equipment, or industrial machinery. A physical event may create cyber consequences. For example, a flood may damage servers, interrupt communication networks, or force employees to use less secure remote systems. A physical crisis may also produce misinformation online. During a campus emergency, inaccurate social media posts may spread faster than official messages. The public may not distinguish between verified reports and rumors. Therefore, communication teams and cybersecurity teams must work together. Consider a ransomware attack on a hospital. The attack may prevent staff from accessing patient records. This is a cyber event, but it quickly becomes a physical safety crisis because doctors may not have the information needed to treat patients. Consider a power failure at an airport. The physical outage may disable check-in systems, security screening, baggage handling, digital signs, and passenger communication. The crisis crosses multiple domains. Because of this interconnectedness, crisis leadership must be coordinated across departments. Security personnel, IT specialists, facilities managers, communication staff, legal advisors, human resources, and senior leaders must share information and make decisions together. The leader does not need to be the greatest technical expert in every field. However, the leader must understand how different systems depend on one another. The leader must also create an environment in which experts can communicate clearly. Technical specialists may need to explain complex problems in language that decision makers can understand. Crisis leadership across physical and cyber domains requires integrated planning, joint exercises, shared communication procedures, and clear authority. An organization should not wait for a real emergency before introducing the physical security team to the cybersecurity team. Slide 10. crisis readiness, self-assessment, and reflection. We will conclude today's lesson with a crisis readiness self-assessment. Think about an organization you know well. It may be your current workplace, a previous employer, a school, a government agency, a business, or a nonprofit organization. Ask yourself the following questions. Does the organization know who has the authority to declare a crisis? Does it have a crisis management team? Are the roles of each team member clearly defined? Does the organization know which functions are essential? Can it continue operating if the main building is unavailable? Can it continue operating if its computer systems fail? Can leaders communicate with employees if email and internet services are unavailable? Are employee and customer records backed up? Does the organization have alternative suppliers and service providers? Have employees practiced realistic crisis scenarios? Does the organization have procedures for communicating with the public and the media? Does the crisis plan address both physical and cyber threats? If the answer to several of these questions is no, then the organization may have significant readiness gaps. For your crisis leadership reflection, you should consider both organizational readiness and personal leadership readiness. Reflect on how you believe you would respond during a crisis. Would you remain calm under pressure? Would you communicate clearly? Would you make decisions quickly? Or would you hesitate because information was incomplete? Would you listen to experts? Would you be willing to change your decision when new evidence becomes available? How would you respond to frightened, angry, or confused stakeholders? What leadership strengths would you bring to a crisis team? What skills or qualities would you need to improve? Your reflection should demonstrate an understanding that crisis leadership is not simply about authority, it is about responsibility. A leader may be required to make unpopular decisions, communicate painful information, protect vulnerable individuals, and remain visible during difficult circumstances. The main lesson from this session is that crises are not managed by plans alone. Plans provide structure, but people provide leadership. Organizations that prepare before disruption are more likely to respond effectively. Organizations that communicate honestly are more likely to maintain trust. Organizations that learn from experience are more likely to become resilient. As future leaders, your responsibility is not only to react when something goes wrong. Your responsibility is to help build organizations that are prepared, adaptable, ethical, and capable of continuing their mission under difficult conditions. That concludes our introductory lecture on the foundations of crisis management and crisis leadership. Before we end, consider this final question. When a crisis occurs, will your organization simply have a plan, or will it also have leaders who are prepared to use that plan with judgment, courage, and compassion? Thank you for joining me in this week's class. Please do not forget to submit your personal reflections before Sunday. Post all reflections on the LMS discussion board.